All right, it appears we're live and such. Pretty much. Should have to wait for the video to confirm. Just a second here. Any minute now. Come on. All right. There for the video to confirm. There we go. All right. So that's working, and then we'll pop out the chat. And then I guess we'll say we're ready to go. Do whatever this is. Talking such physics, maligning physics, whatever, however people want to interpret it. It's just so bad. So I think the conversation with the troll sort of does illustrate that there's more of an agenda here. This isn't about the truth. Because clearly people who care about the truth would be saying any evidence that indicates they might have the wrong answer would be really important to them, and say, okay, yeah, maybe we got to fix that. And there's just so little willingness to accept any of the obvious chinks I have found in this armor. It's a really flawed system of beliefs and whatever assumptions. That's all it really is a system of assumptions. And the closer you get to providing really substantial hard evidence that some of those assumptions have to be wrong, the more panicked they get, and the more outrageous their reaction becomes, and it really sucks. How I'm doing, who cares? I mean, I don't pay much attention. Because if I start asking myself how I'm doing, then I'll start realizing I'm not doing that well. Anyway, so I don't, unless there's blood coming out of my ears, I try not to pay any attention. So anyway, so I can read some comments, but just this interferometer thing is, I hate to waste so much time on it, but it's such a good illustration because it goes back, 200 years, 100 years. It's a lot of, 100 years. It's just all assumption and no evidence of anything. There's really nobody's rigorously analyzed how this thing actually functions. I mean, clearly it is sensitive to measuring changes in distance. It's a good ruler, but it's not the ruler they think it is. It's not working the way they think it does. Those are really important misses, and they should want to know how it works. I mean, they're scientists. They're supposed to want to understand it. Not to have a fake understanding, not to have a Three Bears story of this real story, the fantasy instead of the reality. And it seems they're just so glued to the fantasy, and they just don't want to even hear that there was maybe some really fundamentally wrong assumptions built into it. But you can do this about relativity and everything else. I was listening to some more, to some of these interviews with these old scientists, and they would talk about Einstein, and one of them sort of pointed out Einstein went to his grave really just hating quantum mechanics, hating this notion that of the rolling dice argument, that there's actually some mechanism in the system that creates random, and that all of this anti-clockwork part. And, again, I just see that as such an irony, because Einstein, promoted on the galactic scale, a mechanism that has no mechanism. Just this idea that empty space is somehow consumed, by merely having mass, and that there's no mechanism for this consumption. Where I would argue the obvious mechanism is the fact that all the material bodies are being pressurized, and that's how they create their gravity, is by storing a lot of energy. just no concession to the mechanism, that you need to explain where the energy comes from, and bent space doesn't do any of that. And clearly you have the same problem with magnetism, in that you have this obvious force carrier, and you don't have a mechanism to carry the force. You don't have a mechanism that explains why the magnet doesn't have to lose any energy and constantly creates this pressure. Where you could hold two magnets together for your whole life, and you would expend a ton of energy pushing them together, two repelling poles. And if you added up all that energy that you spent your whole life pushing those two magnets together, the calories, it would add up to, enough energy to power a city or something, and you're just, power a city for an hour. Just saying, it'd be a lot more energy than, and you just look at the two magnets, how did they create all that energy, in the sense that how is all that pressure being created? Because the magnets aren't getting lighter. And that's just such a fundamental question to leave unanswered. You'd think scientists would be saying, no, we got to find an answer, because that's too big a question to just leave with a big ambiguous, it just is. It's really not good enough. For me, not even close, of course. But anyway, that's all this is provoked out of, is this, that I find those answers so weak and empty, and these people find them so complete and satisfying. And that's rather amazing. So anyway, so the Mindless Marbles guy did a couple of videos responding, and I think the one where I go through all of the flaws in the logic of the interferometer, at least I don't know if I hit all of them, but I hit a ton of points about all the things that aren't considered. So there's just no rigorous examination of what happens to a photon when it goes into that experiment. As far as I know, nobody's ever done the experiment with single photons. It's just no curiosity about how this thing works at all. They're just going to make this bold assertion that somehow the two beams are interfering with each other, and they're doing it in such a way as they can measure, the fact that one beam is, a half phase out of phase with the other beam, and all this crap. So they have this whole assumptive theory, and they've just spent no time at all analyzing any aspect of it whatsoever. Just fuck, because it's just amazing. So he did post a counter comment, and then he deleted it. But it was really an annoying comment, because he was basically still asserting that his stupid cone, he put a hole in it, and somehow that he thought fixes it. And, he just ignored every point I made in the video about all the flaws in the experiment, and that, the argument I'm making about the simplifying the beam splitter is only making the argument that, well, at least you eliminate all these other effects as influences on the experiment. So if you make it as simple as possible with a plain piece of glass, at least you're trying to eliminate all of these, like I pointed out, the effects of creating a bunch of, a diffraction gradient essentially in the beam splitter. I mean, having a diffraction gradient in the middle of your beam splitter doesn't seem like a great idea if your objective is to have two equal beams, and that a plain piece of glass will do the job of splitting light. Maybe it won't be 50-50, but who cares? So it really doesn't theoretically have to be. But anyway, he just didn't deal with a single one of the points raised. It was just so obvious. They just don't want to hear it. They're just obnoxious to the argument, and they're going to keep trying to, defend conventional physics by ignoring every point you raise. So anyway, that's certainly how I see it. So I'll read a couple, not two comments here, a little bit not so great. So the Alexander Zaptia guy did defend himself that I'm merely pointing out to the other guy that his comments is nonsensical. Yes, but that was quite obvious, but it wasn't entirely nonsensical, because many people would argue that most of the people who become dedicated trolls are in fact spurned lovers or whatever. They're people who are, you know, their ex-wives or whatever. They're you know, somehow disappointed lovers, or however you want to put it. And that's the whole reason why they're trolls. It's just because they're angry on a personal level. They took something personally, and that's why they're doing it. So you're not even right about your comment, in the sense that his comment wasn't nonsensical, in the sense that it's perfectly reasonable to imply, if you're trolling this hard, you must have a hard on, you know. So that's not exactly an unreasonable theory. And then you went on to say that you didn't pay any attention, and it just looks like this guy is trying to do a fair job of debunking me, and that's not what he was doing. So that was really the part that pissed me off, is that your superficial analysis of what he's attempting to do was, again, making him successful in what he was attempting to do, which was he was attempting to say, look, I'm responding to what you pointed out, when he wasn't really responding to what I pointed out. Okay. And, you know, his I got you crap of this whole idea of doing it with a flashlight, even when we already know that the most famous interferometer in the world right now isn't using a flashlight, it's using a laser beam. And we also know that Michelson Morley didn't even use monochromatic light. So, you know, what's the point of doing the experiment the wrong, you know, the poorest way possible? So anyway, I mean, you're entitled to your bullshit. I'm just saying that you clearly, you know, when you engage with trolls, you risk getting troll on yourself. That's all I'm going to argue. So if you interact with trolls as if they're not being trolls, then you get what you get. Fuckhead. I don't know if I've read this one. Another one by the Marcus guy. Hi, I tried at home with my green laser in a small and large mirror, as you say, but I don't know about the large and small mirror. You can use any size mirror you want, as far as I'm concerned. But I directed the final beam to one side of the first mirror. So again, I don't even know what that means, one side of the first mirror. I would never use the edges of anything, so I always shot for the middle. I saw no interference pattern. Again, that just doesn't mean anything, because the whole point is you don't get any interference pattern if the glass is clean. So I got all manner of interference pattern, all wonky, as the first scrap of the mirror was a broken piece. Again, sort of irrelevant. As long as you're not shining the beam at the broken edge, it shouldn't matter. All mirrors are essentially broken pieces of bigger mirrors. And the pattern only occurred when the beam was near some fractured part of the mirror. So again, the point is the pattern is being created because there's dirt on some surface. Some surface has to have dirt on it, some sort of, or moisture. So it has to have moisture or dirt on it. To create the pattern, you basically have to create the diffraction gradient, which in essence the half-silvered mirror is. So you have, if you don't have a half-silvered mirror, you have to replace the half-silvered mirror with some other particles on the mirror, on the glass surface. Can you rerun your experiment? Well, I plan on doing some modifications to it, but I don't want to rerun the same thing. I want to try to do something to find out more. Sending the beam to one side of the first mirror and not around it and the can. I don't know what that means. I think you'll find no interference pattern, just a nice clean spot. Yeah, it doesn't magnify until you do the internal reflection thing. So you can only do it on the trip back. The trick to creating the pattern is it has to go through the dirt layer first and then be reflected. So it has to go through the thin layer of the material, dirt first. I think you'll find that no interference pattern, just the nice clean spot, assuming the laser lens is really clean too. Well, the laser lens doesn't matter too much. As long as you have it at a good enough distance away, the fringe patterns from the laser itself won't be relevant. However, the fact that you get an interference pattern without the splitter and a recombining unit shows the errors of the theory of the interferometer. Yeah, I think the fact that you can, yes, you can create the pattern without splitting light is true. And so you can create the pattern without without any place that seems, well, obviously, like I say, I am creating a Huygens space, whatever you want to call it. As soon as you create a dirt on the surface, anything to diffract the light, you'll create the pattern. So the pattern's always going to be created by diffraction. But the point is they don't blame that kind of diffraction for the pattern. They say it's something else. So you need to be sure that you are not splitting your beam into by some of the laser beam going near the edge of your mirror. Yes, I already know that. Hard to see on the video. I don't think anyone really has a workable model of light. I've not heard one anyway. Well, I'm claiming mine's pretty workable. So whatever. Homo sapiens says, I knew something productive was going to come of this. I don't know whether he's being sarcastic, but I think the video I made was pretty productive in that it really did go through a ton of the flaws in the common description of what interferometers are. Falwell guy. Hi, Gary. I have a lit candle and jam jar bottom, so it's going to be kind of funny about it. I'm not getting good results, plus my paper cone keeps going up in smoke. Yes, on reflection, it's probably not the best setup for experimentation. Yes, it was kind of lame of him. Surely today's technology, we have surpassed the use of beam splitters. Yeah, well, you really haven't, in the sense that the idea of the beam splitter is that you're, again, we're going back to the single photon argument. The theory that is quantum mechanics, there's no quantum mechanics theory for taking different photons and having them interfere with each other. The only quantum mechanics theory there is that a single photon changes into some sort of wavy things, and the wavy things interfere with themselves from the single photon. But there's no evidence that different photons can interfere with other photons. So you're always going to need a photon splitter, right? We shouldn't call it a beam splitter. We should call it a photon splitter, right? The technology exists to produce and calibrate two separate light emissions that are near identical. Well, that really doesn't exist, to tell you the truth. There's no way you could create a laser beam that was perfectly in phase, and that it's really not. The technology just isn't here yet. You can't create reliable photon emission in the sense that you know exactly, you can place them at exactly the right frequency and exactly match their phase and all that stuff. This doesn't do that. While they may not be exactly the same, it's more unlikely they will be more closely matched than the current method of producing two beams. Well, again, the idea of the beam splitter would be that they would be, or photon splitters, that they would be identical. Clearly, that's not what's happening, though. As we have established, the split beams are not all that similar. Yeah, well, the point is that, yes, their theory doesn't have any, there's no evidence that they've mechanically duplicated their theory. That said, though, I suppose if the light doesn't pass through the beam splitter, it won't turn into probabilistic wave function. Yes, that's what I already pointed out, so you caught your own statement, which may ruin the results, smiley face. Yes, well, your whole comment was a bit of a joke, but yes, fine. Come to Boston, Gary. This is unsub serif. I will hit up MIT or whatever. I'll make the security chase me and you nail the physics professor. Yeah, well, whatever. None of that's going to happen, but whatever. Yeah, fine. All right. So, yes, generally speaking, not very useful comments. And like I said, the mindless guy did leave a comment, but he deleted it. So that was the end of that. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I can't tell where people are being sarcastic. You know, it's just impossible to tell. I can't there's nobody I can truly trust anymore. So they all go wacky on me somewhere. So, you know, I just assume, you know, I have to assume the worst. But yeah, I think like I said, going through all the different, I hadn't even thought about the Feynman video where he was talking about Newton's glass and the layers, the thickness of the glass, and how you can change the reflective index. And how even that conversation, when you can actually change, you know, for submarines, they make, you know, they polish the glass in the window so there's as little reflection as possible so you can see out better. And but by that theory, does that also change light coming at a different angle? I mean, does that only work for light going straight through? Like there's no reflection for light hitting perpendicular to the glass. But does that change also affect light that would be reflecting? I mean, could you actually make a piece of glass that doesn't reflect incident light? I don't think you can. That would be rather amazing, right? That you could have light at a sharp angle and it wouldn't reflect off the glass. That would be, I haven't seen that anywhere displayed, but maybe magicians use that, right? Maybe that's a trick that actually does work, but I haven't seen it. So hard to say. And let's see what else. So yeah, but there's just so many points that, you know, you can just go through so much of the stuff about what happens when light actually reflects in glass. You know, the layer thing is just so interesting too, because it's reflecting off. It's always on the transitions, you know, from one surface to another. And you can kind of tell that because you can make the glass different thicknesses and you won't change how much light reflects, even though it's thicker glass. So you would think if it was reflecting at all different layers in the glass, the thicker you would make it, the more reflections you would get. So it's obviously has nothing to do with the thickness of the glass. So it is just the surfaces that it all happens on. And is it, you know, and again, is the light that reflects off the bottom surface, is it really reflecting off the bottom surface, or is it really just reflecting off the top surface of the air layer below the glass? It's really interesting. And then when you cram layers of glass together, it seems like you only have the one effect, the surface reflection, and that the other layers don't really make any difference. And I would almost argue that's because they're electrically bound to each other. So once the glass layer is against another glass layer, it's like that layer doesn't exist anymore. So you have to have dirt or something in between those two layers to create another layer to create more disturbance. But if the layers are clean and you put two pieces of glass next to each other, it's essentially one piece of glass, maybe. Something like that. So there's Venus, penis, vagina. She seemed to verify the fact that she is not intending to appear like a troll. So we'll take her word for it and such. The internet can be a dangerous place. I was watching your physics last night and realized a way to test your idea. Well, that would be interesting. I'm not sure you did that, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll test your test.
Could be a new post.
Please, it won't be anything of value on there.
Such.
No doubt there's never any useful posts. Never, never, never. Okay, yes, whatever. More people. Whatever. Okay, mute that computer. Let's see. Shouldn't magnets be weaker? No, there's no weaker stuff with magnets. Should magnets be weaker on the side of the Earth facing the sun? No. So stronger at noon versus midnight? No. Because the gravity shadowing. So again, you're confusing the forces. The gravity is, it's all the same mass of force. And the only thing, a magnet's behaving exactly like gravity. It's like it's in gravity. It's behaving exactly like gravity. And everything in gravity, forces going in and forces coming out. There's no collecting all of the force. You're collecting force this way, you move this way, you hit force this way, this way. So you're constantly moving a little bit like this maybe, but there's no force you're collecting. You're not collecting a velocity. So you're not absorbing anything. The magnet's not absorbing anything when it's, if this was a magnet, it wouldn't be absorbing any velocity. So it wouldn't be creating any shadows. And all it's doing is releasing the energy that comes into it polarized. So that is, the black stuff goes out this end and the red stuff goes out this end. But it's exactly the same amount of gravity that would have left it if it didn't segregate it. So even if it was just a lighter, the lighter is emitting black and red in all directions. So it's not polarizing the gravity. So there's no extra amount. There's no, you can't affect magnetism by shadowing light or shadowing gravity. The magnetism is just a filtering effect. It's just filtering what comes in. It's not absorbing what comes in. So the magnet doesn't absorb any extra gravity. It just admits the gravity, the force, segregated instead of mixed. So there aren't fewer bits facing the sun. There aren't fewer bits facing the sun. We're affected. The amount of gravity that the sun creates is so tiny that you can't feel it. Okay. Now, yes, there is a slight effect when the Earth is facing the sun. The part you're standing on is facing the sun. There's a slight effect in the differential between the two sides, but now we're getting into tide arguments. But it's so slight that you can't detect it. You can't feel the difference, and a magnet can't sense the difference either. So yes, it's being affected by less gravity overall, but that less gravity, or the differential between the pull towards the center of the Earth and the pull towards the center of the sun, the Earth wins that by 1,000,000,000 to 1 in terms of the strength of the two forces. So the pull of the center of the sun on an individual object is minuscule compared to the pull of the center of the Earth because of the distance difference. You know, the sun is so far away and you're so close to the Earth. But again, it has nothing to do with magnetism. Magnetism just filters. It doesn't create new force. It doesn't make new force. It just filters force already going through it. Yes, as good as I can say it, I think. So your test wouldn't really be a test. I don't know what exactly it would have tested for anyway. So I don't exactly know what it would prove, even if you could. Well, like I said, you really can't mix gravity and magnetism. You can't change the filter by changing the environment around the filter. The filter will just reflect whatever that comes into it. It will, if it's moving, if it's accelerating, it's still going to be the same magnetism with a bias in the direction it's accelerating, but that bias already exists because it's moving in gravity. So the gravity is already a force, and the magnetism is just going to reflect that force proportionally. So it's not going to create more magnetism in one direction than the other. It's just going to reflect the fact that obviously it's moving. Okay, and if it's moving, it obviously has more force in one direction than just the filtered force. It has its gravitational force. It's material force. Yeah. Mostly. So what else can I complain about? There was sort of a obscure comment that I think was in the spam folder. Yeah, the universal expanse guy added something to one of his comments. Somehow it got spammed. It sounds similar to my capacitance theory, where I believe capacitance resistance is due to the plates not having enough time to fully charge up due to the frequency being too high, and where low frequencies, though, through a small capacitance is the being measured per second. So yeah, so it's basically this argument that there's always going to be a time problem when you're moving the pressure between electrons. It can't move the speed of light because it actually has to accelerate the electrons a little bit through the process. So it's always going to be something slower, the pressure. Always have to move something slower than the speed of light because it has to move the electrons to create the extra pressure. And that takes time. And so the time consumed by moving electrons is creates the limitations, creates the delay that exists in electrical circuits between converting voltage into EMF and then into magnetism and then back into voltage and back into magnetism. That process has always got a lag in it because it takes time to pressurize the electrons. Yeah. All right. So, but yeah, that's kind of a complex subject for open rooms. Kind of. And such. So let's see if there's anything else there. And there's the chat. Okay. A theory is a theory. Well, that sounds bad as a start. I mean, you know, there's no other way to do logic than to recognize a relationship. So you say, this looks white. That's a theory, in a sense. And then you have to do tests to see if, you know, well, it's not really white. It's kind of a beige color, you know, that kind of thing. So the theory is a part of the process. You first have to speculate about what's causing something or what the relationship is or why there's a similarity or why the patterns match. And that's just doing logic. A theory is a theory. That is a fact. But a theory is not a fact. Well, once it's the whole point of the theory is to test it as a fact, to see if it's factual, to see if through tests I can assess that this is most fairly described as white, that no other description is really fairer than to say this is a white lighter. And that is a fact now because we've tested it against all the other possible colors and figured out, nah, it's not really blue. It's white. And so a theory becomes a fact once you've tested it. John. Anyway, hey, Gary, I found this guy named, oh, I don't really care. I'm so sick of people and their links to, look, listen to this crazy flat earther. Listen to this nutty kook. All right, Runzi Cho, okay, whatever that is, on YouTube, who has a video called Einstein's Relativity is Wrong. Yeah, I've seen those videos. I like the guy, okay, but his theory is wanting, if I can just say it that way. It doesn't provide anything, you know, it doesn't provide any hard rocking kind of evidence of wrongness. I thought it was pretty interesting. Have you watched it? Yes, I have watched. It was about a year ago, so I can't remember. I mean, I'm sure I did a video on it. I can't remember exactly. I mean, like I said, I always like somebody who's picking at relativity because I hate relativity. But his pick wasn't a good enough pick. That's my only point. It just didn't really stab relativity in the heart. He didn't provide a theory, did he? He just poked holes in Einstein's reasoning. Yeah, and I didn't agree with, like, so some of the holes are trivial. It's like the electric universe people. You know, they poke these trivial holes in Einstein's math, you know, regarding, oh, his math only has one object in it. How can you have gravity with only one object? Because gravity only means something when there's two objects and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's this, you know, this trivial attacks, you know, that don't really appreciate how it has to be a single body math because the gravity is always created by the body that's creating the gravity. And that's, you can't explain it any other way. You don't explain, you're kind of cheating the argument when, say, for example, they use a test charge to define charge, right? I mean, you're sort of cheating the actual function. So if you really wanted to get to the real function, you shouldn't need a test charge to establish what your charge is, but then that's just a relative charge. And in a sense, Einstein's correct in the sense that Newton should have never combined the two gravities into one force, doing the M1 plus M2, M1 times M2, whatever the fuck it is. He shouldn't have put them both in the denominator, the numerator, the Jeez, I can't get these simple ones right? That's the dyslexic thing, I think. But anyway, you shouldn't have put them both in there in a sense because the masses are individual forces. The two masses create an individual gravity, and the two forces don't mix. The force of the one gravitational body affects the other material body, and the gravity of the other body affects this body, but the two forces never really mix. So anyway, so I'm just saying there's lots of arguments. I think I've demonstrated some fairness in the sense that here I am, somebody who really, I really hate relativity. And I don't just jump at every asshole who says Einstein's wrong and say, what a great argument. It's just like the De Sitter guy. He has shitty arguments, frankly. His arguments suck. He says Einstein's wrong and his evidence is just, weak sauce. And, I don't applaud that. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, obviously, I don't want to be right for the wrong reasons, but I don't want to be right compromising the whole point of being right, which is to have some respect for the truth. So I think, as much as the trolls think otherwise, I have a great deal of regard for getting the right answer. And even if it's for my own integrity, I just don't want to be associated with stuff that I know is fragile and weak, that it's going to be revealed to be a rapist. I don't want to have a friend who I know is kind of rapey just because I don't want to be the friend of the rape guy. I know he's going to rape eventually. So why would we be his friend? Because I know sooner or later it's going to be like, why were you friends with a rapist? His criticisms made sense. Well, see, like I said, I can't remember enough detail to say, but I don't know whether he got into like the twin argument or some other argument, but they're, as has been demonstrated on this channel, I mean, in arguments I've had with people, this relativity stuff has so many catch-22s in it that you really you really have to hash all of that crap out, and you can't just do this I gotchas on technicalities because they have excuses for everything when it comes to relativity. They'll just never run out of bullshit because they've had 100 years to make it make sense. They've had 100 years to think of all these catch-22s. Like I said, my general impression is I like the guy, but I'm just saying I didn't walk away saying, yes, he put the nail in the coffin thing. He put the stake in Dracula's heart. He just, it's a plastic stake and he didn't hit it deep enough, and no way, Dracula's not even close to dead. I don't even think LSD would do it for me in terms of making it make sense. I'll never just, like Einstein, I'll go to my grave saying entangled photons. Antiparticles? Oh, come on. And such. So 15 viewers. Well, not terrible. Well, it's pretty terrible, but I just mean, for physics, I guess. But yeah, I do have to get this. I have to get this broader reach thing to happen somewhere in here. It's really hard to get anything. The internet's getting to be a noisy place. There's so much noise. It's really hard to get anything properly indexed in any way. Unless you really go heavy on the social media and Twitter it and Facebook it and all this other crap. You never start agreeing with anything on quantum mechanics, ? Well, he made concession speeches, but they were kind of forced. Okay, so there is a quote from Einstein where he sort of was being forced to play along, and he said, well, yes, it's very interesting that the photon has this particle wave thing, and it's doing this particle thing, quanta, but it does seem to do this wavy thing, and yes, it does seem to have this blah, 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 blah. So he made some sort of blah, 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 blah to it. But as far as I know, apparently his final lecture he gave, he was proposing, he's still attempting unification. And he was attempting a unification theory primarily based on, real forces, not immaterial forces. So material forces versus immaterial forces. And it was primarily focused on the relationship between gravity and magnetism. And, I think Einstein would have just loved me to pieces, because I think he would have just said, oh, this polarization idea is brilliant. It fixes everything. I never thought of the gravity being polarized. Shit, it explains everything. So I think it would have just, that's the answer. That's how you do the unification. You start with polarization. You don't finish with it. You start with it. Well, I don't know. So she's doing the girl thing again. I think bits move speed of light, then gravity is double that. Well, I think that's just insanely stupid. So I don't know why it would be double that. But whatever. God does not play dice. Yes, that's the famous line. Stop telling God what to do with his dice. That's the, whatever it was, Bohr response. Was it Niels Bohr? There's that other guy. I confuse the two of them all the time. But I think it was Niels Bohr who did that as the, counter argument, which is very unscientific, right? So those are the whole ethery, wavy people are the ones who really think there is a God. Yeah, well, they're moving towards each other from both sides, but they're doing so independently. So you can't measure the two things are moving towards each other. You can't, you can't argue that either one of them is moving faster than the speed of light. And because the forces don't interact, the forces can't meet at that double speed. They still have to go the entire distance to get to the other thing. And this has to move the entire distance to get to this material thing. So it can never appear faster. The force still has to move the speed of light. Force can never move anywhere faster than the speed of light. Dumb question, but what evidence do you have for speed of gravity? Well, the biggest evidence is the fact that it improves the math. So I guess that would be a huge intuitive answer to the question, that you could take Newton's math, and if you put the speed of gravity into it, you'll improve the math, not make it worse. You'll make it better, more accurate. So that would be a pretty good one. And I think the whole Maxwell thing, demonstrating that the byproduct of these other forces, light and magnetism, are the speed, just connects the two pretty well. But yes, it's hard to measure the speed of gravity, obviously. It's hard to do. I think they have other experiments now where they have done that, but I'm just saying the biggest evidence from my perspective is the fact that the math has improved with that speed. Faster, it doesn't work as well. Slower, it doesn't work as well. That speed works the best. So that's a pretty good answer. And such. So I probably should have prepared more stuff for this. I was going to do a room last night, and I just said, well, I really should do these other videos. Just so much to do, so little time for me to do it. Don't even know if there's a little time. I guess there's only a certain amount of energy, I can muster, and it all sucks some of my pressure, out of me. Yeah, well, I'm not big on the saying hi thing, so it's just it's nothing personal. It's not even like I don't like saying hi. It's just that it's sort of redundant, isn't it? And it's sort of, it just doesn't have any real meaty value except on some little personal level. And so all of this, you have to assume the audience is saying, I don't want to watch him saying hello to him. He's not saying hello to me. He's saying hello to him. Why do I want to watch him saying hello to him? Yeah, that's all. It's like hello porn or something. I mean, I know there's some people that, like that kind of stuff, like watching other people doing it. But, there's people like me who say, no, if I'm not doing it, I really don't want to watch somebody else doing it. It's all about me, isn't it? So I'm just saying I'm trying to be respectful to the viewers who don't get off on hello porn. So, yeah. Nothing personal. I would guess you are an integer, Gary. Yeah, I guess that's one of those profile-y things. Yeah, whatever hateful, snarky, pain in the ass shit fucker. Yeah, that's me. So. I am, I mean, you change with time, it's just like I've been there and done that so much time, on Earth. You spend some time, you've been there, done that. Like, I just don't want to keep doing the same, So, I mean, a lot of the niceties of life, I just don't have any patience with because it's just like, fuck it. Hellos, goodbyes, I've done all that shit before. Fuck it. I just don't have any patience for anything like that anymore. Get to the point, There's few prefaces, there's few rhetorical devices, all that. Just get to the fucking point. That's sort of how I am now. Mostly. And such. Yes, well, I don't know about that. But, yeah, I don't really. I have a biorhythm. My biorhythm is not in sync with any other human on Earth. I mean, I really just timing is just really awkward lately. It is annoying when you have to interact with average people every day who start feeling offended if you don't do this polite BS. Yes. I don't mean you hate them or disrespect them. Yeah, it's just all of that social crap is just, it's, like I said, it wasn't so much of a burden when I was younger, but I just find it so tedious now. And the more you know about people, the more you end up hating them anyway, right? It's just, people's flaws are so much bigger than their assets. It's just like, oh, you're a Trumpy. Oh, you're a something. They're always something, and you're just like, oh shit, they're an idiot. Oh, they're an idiot. You always run into that idiot thing. It happens, and you're just, oh, they're an idiot. But whatever. This isn't doing proper physics. I don't think it's any kind of physics. It's not even improper physics. It's not physics enough. So be more physicsy. I should have come to the table with more stuff. I knew it was a little dangerous, because I just didn't have a whole lot of. I just did a video on the electron thing, and it wasn't, part of it was really good. The opening little segment where I'm explaining the space shuttle analogy again, the energy going in, and how people don't really appreciate what's really happening is that all of this energy is going into the space shuttle. It's not going somewhere else. It's going into the shuttle. It was really important. That was good. But so you think polarization is the key to unification? Well, clearly, I think the idea of, obviously charge is just so important, and magnetism is essentially a manifestation of charge, and electricity is charge. Polarization is monstrously important. The only place you don't see it is gravity. And for the obviously explained reason is that's because it hasn't been filtered yet. So the force has polarization in it, and you have to filter it out. So it's mixed, and you have to segregate it. When you segregate it, you create the monopoles. And once you create the monopoles, you're in business creating electricity and magnetism. If you can't get a physicist to pay attention, maybe get a computer scientist to simulate your theory. Well, again, Ampero's offered to do something, but Ampero's probably expensive. But anyway, to do that though, I have to be able to knock it down into some simplest components. So I have to be really careful about what the fundamental rules are and how you apply them in a simulation that's going to be fundamentally too simplistic, but you still want to be accurate. So it's going to be a representation of what happens. So it has to be modified to fit in 2 dimensions and that kind of thing. So, obviously, a simulation, you can't just pop one out. But yes, that's definitely on the table. I can do some of that. I know some programming, but yeah, you don't want to put, like I did a model previously that won't work for my new understanding. So it's like I have to start all over again. And it's just a little bit difficult, like I said, to reduce something to its essential components without losing the nuance of it, without losing something important. So you're going to try to reduce it to something simple. And you have to be careful when you do that reduction that you don't miss something important. Technology people are way more open-minded than academic types. Yeah, I know, but they have to have an incentive to do it. So first off, I don't think I'm going to be paying anybody much money because I don't have much money. And why would somebody else get horny to help me prove my theory? That kind of thing. I guess if they were thinking ahead, they would think, oh yes, well, if he's the next Einstein, then it'd be really good to be friends with Einstein. So I'll do him a favor because I'll be Einstein's friend then, something like that. So, but it would have to be some kind of calculation where they get something for their trouble. Well, you don't really need any new math. I don't know why people bring up math. You need the math for that, though. You don't need math for that. Well, obviously you have to do math to do a simulation, but actually the math you're doing for the simulation isn't the same math you would do to solve the equation, because it's a rendering like when you make a toy model, the math changes, for, the famous one is, I remember on the last time I watched 60 Minutes, they did an episode on Noah's Ark, and they showed a guy who made an ark out of popsicle sticks and floated it in some water. It was like, that math isn't right. I mean, you can't just make a popsicle stick ark and say, there, a real ark would work, because it's a popsicle stick ark. It isn't, the physics aren't the same, when you make something bigger. And so, anyway, it's just so obviously wrong. So the point is that obviously the math is going to be math. I have to take the math and turn it into, 2D math. And then I have to turn it into a representational math of some kind. It's just not going to be this. It's going to be proportional. I have to keep everything proportional and recognize and be obedient to the laws created. But again, the math that you put in the simulation is more math about moving spaces. I mean, you're going to be changing it into a geometric model, entirely geometric. Anyway, idea on gravity is easy to represent in 2D already. Yeah, well, the gravity part is easy. It gets more complicated when you're talking about electrons and protons and charge. So yes, I don't know if I need to I don't know if I need to simulate the gravity model, because frankly, anybody who takes this at least a bit seriously should be able to follow along with that idea of the external pressure pushing things together inevitably. I mean, the idea of ball bearings and two checkers, and the fact that the two checkers will inevitably move into each other. Mach gravity should be something they can grok all on their own. I shouldn't have to explain that to them. But, obviously the public would have to have it explained. I mean, that's why I need to have this conversation with a physicist. I need to have it with somebody who knows what Mach gravity is and understands its one flaw, which is the drag question, and how I've resolved the drag problem. I doubt 2D is a good start. I don't know what that means. I mean, you really can't, a 3D simulation would get insanely complicated, not only to visually represent, but to mathematically diagram. You're always comparing yourself to Einstein. Regardless, I'm not comparing myself to Einstein. I'm just saying, obviously, I had a same sympathy as Einstein in the sense of recognizing the universe is a mechanism. And, but beyond that, I mean, again, I don't know why I shouldn't sense that if I'm right, then I'm better than Einstein. So I'm not even I'm comparing myself to Einstein in the sense that obviously I got the right answer, so I'm better than Einstein. Duh. I don't know what your dig is. So you're saying whoever it is who finally unifies physics, he'll have to know he's better than Einstein before he does it, or he'll have to wait till after he does it? I mean, when is he allowed to know that he's better than Einstein? It's just such a bullshit argument. So whatever, fuck you for that. It's vector math, Gary, same thing as video games. Oh dear. I don't know if video games deal with as much of having to duplicate gravitational motion and stuff. I mean, maybe those whatever it is, Angry Birds, that video game, duplicates a lot of gravity, obviously, in the Space Bird version. But I don't want to argue with you, but obviously, creating this simulation from the ground up, it's a lot of work to create objects and then give the objects specific capacity to move, and then have them affected in a specific way by field circumstances. So it's, if you think you just punch numbers into a computer, you don't. You have to write the entire thing. Let's increase global warming and wait to see if the Ark museum floats or not. Yeah, well, that's another funny one. The museum And maybe that's where the devil lies, in the details. You might find that when you're trying to get it simulated, you can't get it to work. Don't you think that's a possibility? No, because I've already simulated it in on paper, in the sense that I've drawn pictures of what happens mechanically over time. So, I mean, I could animate drawings and create a simulation through that method. I mean, I could do time lapse, of images, stop motion. I could do stop motion animation and animate that way. So I'm pretty certain of the underlying functions because they match the experimental results. So fuck you. Gary, have you ever heard of physics envy? No, I never have. I don't even think there is. I mean, I don't know. You type that into Google, you think you get any results? It's the idea that social science envy the mathematical precision. So another joke, this mathematical precision, when, like 80% of the math nowadays is irrational numbers. Yeah, well, that's really precise, those irrational numbers. And rigor of physics and hard science. Well, again, it's just a joke to call physics / hard science, when, as I've demonstrated, every one of their hard experiments, they can't even interpret rationally. They can't get a cause right to save their life. You're just such a propagandist. I mean, their evidence absolutely sucks. It is the most unhard science there is. Biology has hard science. You can pick up a fucking dinosaur bone and you're looking right at it. You don't have any dinosaur bones in your stupid quantum mechanical crapola. All right. You said someone will want to be your friend because they think you're the next Einstein. Yeah. What is wrong with saying that? Are you retarded? If somebody thinks I'm right, they're going to be like, holy shit, this guy is going to do what Einstein couldn't do, unify physics. That's amazing. Yeah. I want to be connected. It's like if somebody knew the guy who did Facebook or whatever, the fucking crook. Somebody was friends with Bill Gates and said, look, he's going to invent a computer. Well, maybe I ought to give him a bag of cookies. You're just being a cunt. You got to change your name back because you are very penis vagina. Anyway, since you think the scientists cannot really make predictions, well, I didn't say they can't. I've suggested that they haven't in the past predicted shit. And they just claim they predicted something when they saw something and then wrote a reason why it happened. But anyway, with QM, how are you using this to make technology? How are we using this to make technology? So again, this argument that the transistor was invented by quantum mechanics, when no, it was invented by observation. And then they said, let's try this, and let's try that, and let's try this. But they didn't mathematically figure it out ahead of time and say, oh, this is how we do it. And then, oh, we already have the recipe. Let's go make one. That didn't happen. What is the way the luck works out? Another great Pyrrho sentence there. What is the way the luck works out that it's so successfully, while so wrong, is so successful? So again, he's giving it all kinds of credit that have absolutely nothing to do with facts or reality. Again, they didn't predict anything. They observed things that were already in the world. Again, the Time Machine novel was written way before Einstein's theory. There was already a whole bunch of talk about the connection between time and speed and all of those kind of connections. So this is all such a pile of horseshit that this fucking theory has predicted a fucking thing, or that it invented a fucking thing. It didn't do any of that. The only thing their theory has invented is quarks and pions and nuons and puons and zuons and zhuons, and none of them have ever been proven to be fucking real. Ever. Oh, God, what a crock of shit. All right, it's not that video games duplicate gravity motion, but it's a physical engine can simulate gigantic battlefields using vector math. Again, I'm not just, obviously vector math just has to do with scaling something, okay? Vector graphics. They're scalable, okay, in terms of their resolution. You scale them to any size. That's not what this, I'm not worried about scaling the size of the simulation. So that's not the point. And the point is yes, you always reduce something to the simplest way to model it possible. And the simplest way is going to be an algorithm, a mathematical algorithm. But again, composing that algorithm isn't just a snap your fingers kind of process. Composing the algorithm is the process that's going to take you 98% of the time. There's no reason why molecules can't be based on your ideas. I don't know what molecules have to do with my ideas, frankly. Molecules are functioning on a level of the physics where the physics almost disappears because it's now being turned into mechanical forces in terms of our perception. We don't even see the magnetism anymore. We don't see the forces affecting the matter bits. I mean, all of it becomes invisible when you start scaling out to the size of molecules. But anyway, our institutions are often flawed. We dumb primates let's see, we're dumb primates. Well, again, we're not. We're gaining so much knowledge. This is just such a stupid argument. We're dumb. We're not dumb. Ugh, fuck. We're perfectly capable of looking at facts and combining them and analyzing them. The point is we're not doing it because we're liars and pukes. It's not that we're dumb. It's that we're corrupt. It's corruption, okay, that has people claiming the interferometer does what it does without explaining how it does it. That's a corruption in understanding. That's not a lack of understanding. Scientists should well understand they have an obligation to explain it rationally, not irrationally. But if physics engine can simulate, no, that's the wrong one. They're dumb primates, and there are plenty of examples of math exposing them as such. I don't know about that, but I wonder if you're any whatever visceral experience with this. I don't know what that means, but no, I guess is my answer. I don't care, whatever that is. It's not relevant. If I unified physics, I wouldn't be wasting my time having live chats on YouTube in my basement. Okay, I might as well just block you now. Okay, that's enough of that shit. How would the front stoop of Oxford give me any more access? Do you really think it's that's the way it works? I could just harass physicists? Like I said, I've sent them offers for real money, $5,000. I've offered them for a few hours of their fucking time, you fucking cunt. You know, you're just such a, you know, what a trolly puke statement to make, you jackass. Fuck you until you're dead, you weasel. You can't make a real argument, so you type this puke? Creep. Anyway, do you think people in the age will come about in new... do you think people in this age will come about a new Einstein? They only seem to care about whatever this is, buddy shaking and self-glorification, gratification. Yeah, well, Einstein, I mean, Feynman, for example, had a huge ego, and lots of people have ego problems, but Einstein isn't, there's nothing, Einstein was wrong. So, I mean, fuck. Einstein wasn't exactly miraculous. I mean, a year before they basically split the atom, he said, you'll never split the atom. I mean, he wasn't right about everything, and his biggest thing that he's known for, he was wrong about. And the only thing I like about him is that he knew quantum mechanics was shit, but he was kind of wrong about everything else, for fuck's sake. So why is Einstein God? He was wrong. Shit. Oh. All right, listen, Benjamin, you can go fuck yourself till dead too. I mean, what is that? Ease up. Gary is disabled. How am I disabled to do these live rooms? How the fuck could there possibly be any connection, you stupid cunt? I mean, what the fuck is with these pukes? All right, QM is how they model chemical reactions. Oh, listen, chemical reactions can be modeled by a million other things, okay? They can actually make physical models. This is just such a crock of shit that there's quantum mechanics is somehow critical. Just a crock of shit. Oh, you're just such a propagandist. Will you answer the 3 questions I asked in the video, please? Will you watch the last video I made to the trolls on the subject of the interferometer and have the balls or the integrity to address one fucking issue raised in those videos instead of this puke? Quantum mechanics is the most proven theory in the history of mankind. It's a preposterous, made-up lie. You have no evidence of this bullshit you keep spouting, you fucking propagandist. And you keep running away from answering a single question I've raised. Not a single one have you addressed, you stupid, weak puke. You just do this propaganda, this fucking, the Pope is God, the Pope is God, the Pope is God. You have no evidence of your Pope being anything but a child molesting scumbag. Your fucking QM has done nothing, nothing, nothing. And they have made lots of new materials. So what? They made them exactly as I pointed out how they made them, by doing experiments, not by doing fucking QM calculations, douchebag. So they have created new technology. Yes, not by the process you claim, by predicting the technology and then proving it. That's not the way it's ever done. I would deny it because you have no evidence of it. That's why I'm denying it. Because every single time you even scratch at any of this shit, you see the facts, which are, yes, the Time Machine novel was written before Einstein. Einstein didn't invent the idea that there's a relationship between speed and time travel. Duh. Oh, man. People are just so disgusting. I don't think that is the case, whatever that even is reference to. I don't see how quantum mechanics can even make a molecule. Like, look, it's not totally useless, but it's certainly not what they've propagandized this math to be. It is not some kind of amazing observation that there's a probabilistic outcome when you associate matter with photons. I mean, duh, there could be lots of causational explanations for why that happens. And they've chosen to believe in this Heisenberg-Huygens nonsense. But that Heisenberg stuff doesn't get them any accurate answers because it's completely a we can't see it, we can't know where it is. How does not knowing where something is give you more insight into predicting? Oh, it obviously doesn't give you more insight. It gives you less insight. Oh, just amazing horseshit this is. All right, I'm glad someone realizes Einstein wasn't all that. All right, GM doesn't make molecules. It explains how they behave. Well, again, it just doesn't explain it in any kind of rational terminology. They magically feel the effects of the magical randomness, which tells them to randomly forget where they are and not have a position in space or time. Again, where is your evidence that with your silly buckyball experiment and the 2-slit experiment, why don't they use light sensors to see what slit the buckyballs go through? Because obviously a photon isn't going to disturb those buckyballs any, so they can know its position and its speed. So why don't they do it? Why don't they tell us what slit they went through? Because there's absolutely no reason for it to destroy the experiment. Oh, that's right. They haven't even done that experiment. That's how fucking deep their heads are up their own quantum mechanical ass, is they don't even test any of this test instrument. Again, I've pointed out how there's not a single bit of the stupid interferometer that they've analyzed with any kind of rigorous curiosity. They've just accepted the dogma. They don't give a shit how it works. They don't care about what the real causes are. And you say that QM philosophy is somehow scientific and accurate. How can it be scientific and accurate when it has absolutely no curiosity, no desire to explain a fucking thing? Just assume. It's all based on assumptions. Anyway, what a pile of shit. How is it the math? Here we go again. The math that doesn't accurately predict the 2-slit experiment results. That, okay, I mean, it's just amazing. It's so accidentally correct. No, it's completely incorrect. Why isn't the double slit? Why isn't the slit width in all the 2-slit math on every video on YouTube? Not a single video on YouTube does the double slit math with the slit width in it. So it's basically doing the single impediment math. And they're saying that's the math for the double slit experiment. This math is the same as the 2-slit math. How is that possible, retard? How is that accidentally correct? No, that's obviously incorrect, shit for brain. Oh man, you are so full of shit. There's there's two nondescript, another chatter. So again, that's two nondescript. What does this even mean? Again, you just don't deal with a single subject. You don't deal with the facts that it isn't accurate math, that it's not even wave math, it's vector math. It has angles in it, angles that rays travel at. There's no waves in the math. They keep pretending it's wavy math. No, it's vector math. It's straight line ray math. They don't even get what quantum mechanics math actually is. They just keep propagandizing. All right, Benjamin was talking about your anxiety. Again, it's irrelevant. Why would my anxiety have a motherfucking thing to do with whether or not I can answer a troll? It's just a stupid thing to bring up. Why did you just bring it up? It's stupid. What the fuck could it possibly have to do with anything? I'm making physics arguments, you lunatic. How fucking dumb can you see? This is what I mean. You know, oh, he seems like he's a reasonable thing. Oh, and then he sits there and does this puke to explain why you're at home. Who cares why I'm at home? That has nothing to do with anything either. I'm just saying it's just completely idiotic to bring it up. Anyway, I think you are confusing atomic or particle physics in computational chemistry with quantum mechanics. Oh, fuck you. Quantum mechanics isn't even described the same by all of your quantum mechanics scientists. Some of them think, oh, well, the wave function is just an irrational number matrix. And some say, no, it's real randomness, like Feynman, who thinks it's electrons are really time traveling, and the same electron is really in all the histories, the many histories, and blah, 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 blah. You don't even have a consistent argument about what your fucking idiotic quantum mechanics is. Yeah. Puke. Anyway, I would say that's quantum much. I wouldn't say that's quantum much. I don't know what that means. What's the alternative to quantum mechanics? I've presented a whole fucking theory, Ash Jones. The alternative is a mechanical universe, a clockwork universe, as Einstein was attempting to describe, that isn't made out of mush, that's made out of real forces, no fields, no anything, real forces and real matter bits. Real force bits, real matter bits. No invisible bits, no nothing bits, no bent nothings, no magical sources of energy. Oh, so he says it predicts the two-slit experiment, which again is another lie. It didn't predict it. And look, he says it predicts it perfectly. Well, then how come in photons the bars aren't well graduated like in electrons? See, he hasn't even watched my question video. Piro, just fuck off. I mean, you're obviously not interested in watching the videos. You're not interested in hearing the counter arguments. You pay absolutely no fucking attention. You have no business commenting here. Just fuck off. I mean, it's amazing. QM predicts the two-slit experiment perfectly, although they don't do the math with the slits in it. Amazing. The slit width is irrelevant. You're just so full of shit. It's complicated to calculate exactly. So that's why nobody does it. It's because it's complicated. Oh, okay. So there's only one guy on the whole internet that's doing the formula correctly. One single person on a forum, on a physics forum somewhere. Nobody else can do it accurately. And he doesn't even do it with a real experiment. Because when you do it with a real experiment, then you have to be actually accountable. Because then you change something and see if your numbers are still the same. They never do that. They never actually test all the numbers and to see if there's light where it's supposed to be and whether it's dark is where it's supposed to be. They don't do that. It's all a big fraud. So they split it up in two. One is the one slit behavior. The other which has slit width, and the other deals with 2 slits. So again, he keeps saying it deals with 2 slits. They convert the variable in the single slit math. There's a variable for the width of the slit. In the double slit math, that variable becomes the thickness of the impediment between the slits. And the slit width isn't a variable in the formula anymore. There's no slit width. God, he can't follow along to save his fucking idiotic, dumb, fucking retarded life. Well, whatever. I'll go rescue Benjamin, if possible, from the whatever, torture chamber he's in now. But frankly, there's no reason to bring it up. So I don't care what he was doing. There was no point in bringing it up. And that involves the distance between slits. The 2 patterns combined are a good approximation. Again, so he keeps saying it again. There's no good approximation. Again, you still haven't dealt with the simple point. There's bars of light in the photon experiment. In the electron experiment, it's smooth gradations between light and dark. In the photon experiment, it is not. A clear distinction that the math doesn't account for. The math predicts gradation. There's no gradation in the double or single slit pattern, jackass. Obviously, the math isn't accurate. Oh, fuck. He's just going to keep doing it. So, yeah, just fuck off, Piro. Fuck off. Okay, I've answered the point. I pointed out the evidence. You haven't addressed the point. Why are the 2 patterns completely different? The electron pattern looks entirely different from the photon experiment. How could the math be accurate if those 2 look entirely different? You never answer the questions. What a fuck pile of shit. You never listen to my answers. What's your answer to the fucking fact that the beam splitter relies on a diffraction gradient? How can it be creating 2 equal beams if the light's going through a diffraction gradient? How is that possible? Would you answer that fucking question? How can you have 2 equal beams if one of them goes through a diffraction gradient and one of them doesn't? Let's see. The poor fellow activist for non-capitalism, whatever. That title is just too long. Fuck you. I'm not even going to read your comment. Goodbye. You just don't have usernames like that, whatever that shit is. It's retarded. Doesn't Hawking's radiation? So again, more crap. There's no evidence that it even exists. Support the idea of quantum mechanics. How does it support quantum mechanics? I don't understand. Invisible magic la radiation supports quantum mechanics. Oh, okay, fine. Does gravity waves support quantum mechanics too? I mean, converting matter into bent space to create a gravity wave. Is that quantum mechanics too? Because there's no diffraction gradient. Okay, so a half-silvered mirror isn't a diffraction gradient. So that's Piro's brilliant answer. A deny of a rigorous, hard, solid fact. It's impossible for a half-silvered mirror not to diffract light. It's impossible for it not to. Laboratory beam splitter. Again, how does the laboratory beam splitter put half silvering on the mirror without creating a bunch of little tiny slit experiments? How exactly does it do that, retard? It's just crystal magic, huh? And sometimes a clear layer of glue. Oh, so again, so now he's using the cube beam splitter. I'm talking about the half mirrored one, but okay, let's use the cubed one again, which also has been demonstrated that the glue layer exists there for only this one reason. The reason why they glue 2 prisms together is because the glue creates a diffraction gradient. So again, more just deny the truth, just ignore it. They don't use half-silvered mirror in all the experiments. I didn't say they did. Again, it's not a crystal. So again, this word crystal is just baby talk. They don't use a crystal. They use 2 prisms glued to each other. Glued to each other. They don't make a crystal, a solid crystal. Amazing. No, crystals like glass split beams naturally. Again, more crap, just more made up crap. Who uses that? Where is it? Where can I buy one of these magical crystals? Where are they? Where is the magical crystal that isn't glued together? Oh, okay. Go show me. Give me a source, Piro. Then give me a source where they say the glue isn't a diffraction gradient. Go show me the source where it explains how the glue is perfectly transparent and doesn't create any particles in between the two prisms. Where? Show me a source for that bullshit, that made up crap you just spewed. And again, it keeps saying crystal glass. That's nothing to do with crystal. So again, just as they made this, they could have made this square with no glue layer. Why does the glue layer exist? You idiot. You fucktard. They could make a square solid thing. They don't need to, there's no obstacle stopping them from just making this a perfect square. No obstacle whatsoever. Why are they gluing it together, jackass? Oh, that's right, because they have to introduce the diffraction gradient. Oh, you're so full of shit. Again, it doesn't matter what it's made out of. It doesn't have to be crystal glass. Regular glass will do exactly what this does. There's no difference. It's the angles above these surfaces that create. This isn't crystal glass. I bet you this is regular. Frankly, I almost think it's just regular glass. This isn't some special super glass. Well, it's not reflecting off the face where the two meet. The surface is being created. A small film is being created between the two surfaces, causing all the internal reflections and causing the pattern, causing diffraction of the light at sharp angles and then internal reflections that are creating the pattern. It's doing exactly what the half mirror surface is doing. It's creating the diffraction gradient. The experiment is completely dependent on diffracting the light. Oh, you're just so full of shit. Oh, yes. Regular glass is quasi-crystal. I mean, this is just, he's a crystal nut. He thinks there's something special. It's just amazing. Yeah, for the purpose of the experiment, it's totally irrelevant, especially using lasers. So again, this is just more rubbish that if you change the reflective index by 0.02%, that you've made some kind of giant change in the experiment. You haven't made any change in the experiment. Oh, come on. Square molds were too expensive. That's pretty funny. Yeah, they could only afford the 3 sides. They couldn't add that 4th side. Too expensive. So anyway, this is just, it's obvious. They can't admit their evidence is pathetically weak. They have no evidence of Heisenberg, no evidence of Huygens, no evidence that any of this bullshit they've premised all their physics on has anything to do with the truth. The real evidence is that Maxwell's equations point to rays of force, and they just keep pretending these are waves of force. So even when it's explicitly rays of force, they'll call them waves of force. I mean, it's just such bullshit. They just don't give a fuck about the truth. They don't give a fuck about analyzing any of this shit and recognizing the huge imperfections and paradoxes it creates. They have a fucking theory of reality that can't be unified. They have forces, they have energy that comes from nowhere because they have a completely inaccurate description of reality. Is crystal glass woo-woo too? I'm saying it's irrelevant to this experiment. You have absolutely no necessity to use crystal to do whatever you think. Why does quantum mechanics need it to be a crystal piece of glass? It doesn't. There's no mechanical theory saying it has to be crystal. So again, it's just nonsense. Well, Obama probably sold the square molds to the capitalists so they could put solar panels on the roofs of fucking houses. Yeah, let's subsidize implementing this brilliant technology in a way where we'll lose half its value. Yeah, I'm proud to be part of that. An ultra fast harmonic beam splitter. Oh, isn't that special sounding? Ooh, I'm all goosebumpy. To have the clearest glass, you can use crystal. Look, I don't care whether you use lead crystal or not. Okay, this is obviously way too light to be lead crystal. I don't care. I don't know what you're talking about. It's irrelevant to the function of the experiment. The experiment is done with half silvered mirror, for fuck's sake. Hello?
This is Veronica with Member Services.
Oh, no, it isn't Veronica with Member Services. It's a fucking motherfucking cunt piece of software that just keeps saying stupid cunty bullshit and you should be nuked. Yeah, they should drone you, you fucking bitch, until you're really fucking dead. Maybe drone your fucking kids. Anyway. Oh, if I was president. You know, they would be just so dead. Anyway, to have the clearest glass, use crystal glass. So again, this is just such bullshit. This is about, I don't give a fuck. Let's just pretend that every piece of glass in the world is crystal. Who cares? There's no quantum mechanical theory that the crystal makes any difference. So this is just a bullshit distraction. Ugh, fuck. So that's what they use for basic mirror. It might be an issue. Like where would it be an issue? How do you know what Michelson-Morley used? From what I understand, later experiments used a rotating piece of glass, which is even more kind of, you know, oh, sure, that works. But what do you think they used, Michelson-Morley? Half silvered mirror, I bet. I don't know what this off the grid shit means. Obviously, 999 million% of the solar panels aren't off grid panels. I'm talking about the fucking ones the government subsidized putting on people's fucking roofs, you fucking dumb cunt. So another asshole who just misses the whole point. We've wasted 50% of the energy produced by solar panels, and this asshole has to reference some, well, what about the 14 people who are off the grid and had to put them on their roof because they couldn't figure out how to put them on the ground and point them at the sun? Again, it's just so stupid. Even if you're off the fucking grid, why would you put the panel on your fucking roof? It's the wrong angle. It's not perfectly facing the angle. The pitch of your roof isn't the same pitch as the sun. All right. And they don't move, you dumb fuck. Jesus Christ, people are just so fucking stupid. The glass does have to be free of imperfections. So again, this is just such bullshit. The basic function of the experiment can be taken place. It can happen with the introduction of a little bit of noise. A little bit of noise will not destroy the experiment. So this is just such a crock of shit. Has nothing to do with the fundamental subject, is that you don't have a quantum mechanical theory. You have no explanation for where your quantum mechanics makes these beams split in two and then fuse back together again. You have no theory. You can't draw it. Where does it happen? Why don't you draw me a fucking picture of how your photon, a single photon going into the experiment, what happens to it, and how your fucking experiment works? You have no mechanical theory. You have irrational baby talk. It splits the light in two, and then it fuses the light back together again, and then it says these two beams were uneven length. La, 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 la. It's a fucking fairy story. Oh, you're doing this stupid break into MIT thing again. You're just making noise, okay? I'm not looking for irrational jokes. Oh, fuck. We figured it out. We unified amendment in draft science. The capitalists are responsible for the storage of square molds. Now we must organize and plan to take the square molds back, assemble. Yeah, this joke is a nice little running joke, but it's over. Okay? Sick of the joke already. You don't need diffraction gradient to split beams, as you have noticed. So again, as I have noticed, is that you do need it. You have to have moisture on the surface of the glass, or you have to have dirt on the surface of the glass, or there's no fucking pattern, retard. Oh, Jesus. So he doesn't even pay attention to what I have noticed by doing the fucking experiment. I know when they made me to Michelson Morley. Oh, yes, it was a sexual move back then. In a lab in college, we used the cube type. Well, so what? I don't care what type you used. I'm still saying you have no theory. You have no theory for how the light travels through your experiment. You have no rational theory. And you have ignored all of the truths of glass, which is they reflect off all the surfaces, that there's a thing called internal reflections. You've ignored that the thickness of the glass, you change the thickness of the glass, you change its reflective index. There's not a single thing you've paid a single bit of attention to. And then you've ignored the biggest point, which is any thing you put in the way of the light that creates little slits is going to refract the light. Oh, amazing. Just so full of shit. Oh, I don't know. You just keep going with this joke, huh? I think they use sapphire because it is the best sounding. I don't know if it is. Quartz. Quartz is kind of an interesting name. Is warbles on a lot using 1% solar energy from his farm. Well, I mean, in a sense, he has a generator. So, I mean, obviously, he's not using 100%. So when it's rainy and all that kind of crap, he uses the generator. But yeah, he's only generating like 300 watts a day, which would like run my computer for like an hour or something. So, I mean, his total amount of energy per day consumption is really low because, you know, solar panels suck, basically. But his clearly do move with the sun. He's really careful about making sure he gets all the sun he can on his panels. So he didn't put them on some dopey roof. Oh, the amount of energy used to move a fucking solar panel is tiny. So again, more absolute nonsense from Piro. That he's not even conceding the simple argument that by using stationary panels, you are losing half the energy of the panels, okay? By not moving them, not having them at the right angle to the sun and not moving them with the sun, you're throwing away half of their capacity. He's not even admitting the truth of the basic argument so he can defend Obama. I mean, amazing bullshit. Defend the fact that all of these assholes have propagandized about solar energy solutions when they're clearly perfectly willing to waste half the energy on a stupid implementation. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, I can't even explain how, I mean, these panels are not very heavy, how you could tie them all together with one rod and you could move them for what it would take to I mean, it's not even one of those button batteries could do it, for fuck's sake. That's how much energy you would need to use, a button battery. Fuck. Obviously makes sense to just get a basic optimal average angle. Amazing. So he actually thinks it's actually more sensible to ignore getting, I mean, again, to diminish how much energy that like a 40-watt panel would collect in just a few seconds, enough energy to move all the panels all day long. And he's too stupid to even know that. Oh, what an idiot. Okay, yeah, I think they look pretty on a roof. Okay, I mean, you're just screaming to me, I am a fucking idiot. This is why the world sucks, is because people watch other people throw away half the value of something, take a dollar bill and flush it in the toilet, and they laugh. I mean, take tax a guy who has to go into the ground, dig coal out of the ground, tax his money to give it to somebody who's wasting energy. I mean, you're just amazing assholes. It's all a big fucking joke. Everything's a fucking joke. I mean, people just, this is why the world sucks. It's because you people can't think. You can't logically know who the enemy is. You can't figure it out. Obama has a nice smile, therefore he must be a nice guy. I mean, you're just too fucking stupid. Now I refer you to Feynman diagrams about every possible path, which is again not absolute nonsense. The light obviously doesn't take every possible path. All the possible paths aren't even possible paths. Again, Feynman would tell you that a photon could hit a mirror backwards, go backwards this way, and then come forward this way and reflect here. He would say it's possible. When we know if we let a photon do that all day long, it'll never reflect in that opposite direction. It'll never, ever, 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 ever happen in reality. So again, a completely idiotic premise for their physics. Their serious physics has idiotic premises. Overtly idiotic. Remind me how the diffraction creates lines. Yes, the photon only goes one path. Those are lines, idiot. Okay, goes this way, or it goes this way, or it goes this way, or it goes this way. One photon, one line. Dumb fuck. All right, creates lines. Last I remember, it was something about the electrons at the edge of the slit. Yes, I'm not going to re-explain it. There's videos on the subject. Fuck you. I'll do it for somebody else, but I'm not going to do it for you. You have no excuse not to understand it by now. Yeah, well, tidal energy is really efficient, but it's really expensive. The money going in, you have to build giant, heavy cement things to fuck with tides and shit. It's it's really a lot of force. So it's really expensive up front, but yeah, it pays for itself in the long term. It's more efficient than solar panels by a long shot. If ignored, the angle was pointless. Why would plants bother moving to follow the sun? Well, that's too simple an argument for the idiot. Obviously, they get free energy from the multiverse. So the multiverse gives them free energy to move. Because it's so it takes a ton of energy to move. So they get free energy from the multiverse to move. So they're cheating because they're getting free energy from the multiverse. Probably his answer. It's just that the machine with gears and connections. So again, you don't even need gears and connections. You just tie a little string to each panel, and the string is taut, and the little tiny motor just goes, move a little bit this way, and they all move this way, and then you just move a little bit that way, and they move it a little bit that way, and it takes as much energy as it would take to step on a cockroach. The cost of that versus the cost of lost energy. Similarly, so you're just idiotic. Real estate is expensive, so more crap. Most towns own a ton of parkland and shit that nobody ever does anything with, and it's perfect on a perfect slope, so they can put all the panels on one perfect slope for the whole fucking town, have full exposure, no trees in the way, no nothing. I mean, most roofs are blocked by some trees. They don't get the sun all the way to the horizon, So, and then each house has its own inverter. The inverters are incredibly expensive. It's totally an idiotic way to do it. Like I said, they're getting less than 50%. I'm being generous to say they've wasted 50% of the energy. They've wasted more than 50% by putting them on roofs. Just to make capitalists happy. Just to make some fucking cunt like a Piro rich. Let's see. I don't understand how when you look at a star at night, at a star, the light is everywhere and then suddenly is inside my eyeball. Well, I don't know why you think the light's everywhere and then suddenly in your eyeball. One single photon traveled billions of light years across space and hit you in the eye. It didn't go anywhere else. Each little photon, there's a ton of little rays flying off of the sun that's a billion light years away. There's a ton of those little rays. Regardless, you're way behind. If this is your level of understanding of physics, this room is way over your head. Regarding Feynman's idea of being idiotic, in your case, no one has seen a reflection that's always 90 degrees, and that's in your system. Again, they have seen it. That's why the Maxwell equations identify it, is because that's exactly how the force functions. The force obviously radiates from moving charges perpendicular to their movement. That's a fact of the physical universe, and my theory duplicates it. So what's the problem? Oh, that's right. There is no problem. See, I don't put more work into answering or asking questions because you have to call me an idiot no matter what. Well, again, you don't. Well, you know, just fuck off, Piero. You're useless. You think these are serious answers. You do this hatchet job bullshit. Well, it's not a crystal. Well, it's glue doesn't do anything. I'm sure of it. Trust me. I mean, these aren't answers. You prove nothing with a fact. When I force you to drag up some evidence, you fucking show me end up rigged evidence. Evidence that is evidence for my point because it's rigged evidence. You can't get any of this fucking right. Yeah, it's evolving in subtle ways. It hasn't dramatically changed. It was always a particle theory. Okay, the particles were always moving the speed of light. The only thing that's changed is the fact that I was able to unify gravity and magnetism and electricity and the nuclear force with a polarization modification. But fundamentally, the theory's been substantially the same with subtle changes, of course. Rational, reasonable changes, like anyone would logically adjust their newly born child. Is not going to be, he's not at 3 years old going to be the same as he is at 5 years old. He's going to be improved, one would expect, in terms of his consistency with function. And yes, I've modified my theory in the appropriate manner in that I've improved it. Yes. That's not evidence of it being wrong in any way. Nuclear energy is free energy from quantum mechanics. You are welcome, universe. So there he is again. Just more grotesque propaganda that quantum mechanics figured out that there was a lot of energy inside of atoms. So Einstein basically, put together the evidence and established the truth that of E equals mc squared. Einstein hated quantum mechanics. So let's just pretend Einstein actually used quantum mechanics to understand that, when he didn't have to use quantum mechanics to understand it. He understood that atoms were pressurized and that pressure was energy and that there was a certain amount of that pressure per mass. And yes, nothing to do with quantum mechanics at all. And again, this propagandist is just spouting this propaganda. So yeah, I don't know. What is there to say? I'm wasting my time interacting with you. This is just propaganda, disgusting, lying propaganda that somehow nuclear energy has something to do with quantum mechanics. It's just a lie. Oh, so here he goes again. But it's all moot since nuclear is the answer. Yes, because we all want to be Fukushima irradiated. Clearly, they won't implement the nuclear any better than they implemented the solar. That is, they'll give it to a bunch of capitalists and do it badly. And, yes, solar panels aren't likely to go meltdown. So, yes, they can't kill you with solar panels as easily. But we know they can kill you with radiation, and they will kill you. So again, nuclear in what form? And so then he has this stupid thorium bullshit, completely unproven that you could actually get enough energy out of thorium to justify how much it's going to cost you to get the energy out of the thorium. It's not hot enough to be efficient nuclear energy. And yet he claims he has a proof that it is. But he's never shown anybody the proof. Where have you shown the proof that you can extract energy from thorium reactions without it costing you more to get the energy than the energy is worth? Where have you proven it to be more cost effective than running a squirrel inside of a ring? Where have you proven it to be more efficient than a solar panel? You haven't proven that it's an efficient way to release energy at all. To be fair, not your strength, fuck you. The reasoning you have given for the one slit banding has evolved quite a bit. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, yeah, obviously I figured out charge and electrons and I don't know. Am I joined in my own room? Yeah, I don't know if this will be connected. But at any rate, I'll stop the broadcast because whatever, my Linux froze. And that's annoying. And it did it twice. I mean, it did it before I did the room, which is not good. So anyway, not a good sign. Some sort of config problem that I no doubt will not be able to figure out because Linux doesn't make any of that stuff figure outable. But anyway, till next time, such.